Gary here from Pathways Homestead, and I've told some of you I'd share with you kind of my system for cracking pecans. The first thing that's important is a good cracker. This is a slide style cracker, and these crackers are about as efficient and do as good a clean a job of cracking as any cracker I've ever used. They just slide like that. There's an adjuster right here. This end and this end are cupped, and they're just a slide cracker. I've several different made like this, and they've made for years and years, and you can still buy these at places like farm and ranch stores and stuff. So and the way I always set it up is I always set a deal full of pecans I'm going to crack, and then one to put them in, and I set them in front of my cracker. And I always like to have my whole pecans on my left hand, so it's just a fluid motion of putting them in here. It's best to, when you do this, to have pecans that are all about the same size in your container, and so you don't have different sizes mixed in, so you can kind of set your cracker. Alright, so this cracker, it's threaded here, and you roll it out till it's just almost all the way down, and then you'll crack it like this, and you want to just crack it. You don't want to pulverize it. If you have it cranked all the way back up where the handle's up like this with the pecan in it, when you come down you'll mash it to nothing. But that's cracked just enough that it shells good. See that? See how that easy that shelled? And we'll take the bitter out of the middle, and that one's shelled. And so you want them just to crack like that, not mash it to where it's in little pieces, because you want as big a pieces of pecan as you can get. And for this right here, when you're cracking pecans, when you're processing any kind of foraged food, quality control is important. You have to taste a few. So I take my pecans. I always like to have my whole ones on my left, put my cracked ones on my right. I run my cracker with my right hand. I'm right-handed, and I just do that. And it's pretty fluid to put them in there and get another one. You can see it's not taking me long. I'm half done with this container. And we'll have, and so it's cracking good enough that there's a half already holed out on top. There's another one already holed out on top. So and these are pretty nice, kind of a smaller paper shell pecan. I don't know if they're paper shell. They're not as hard as a lot of the natives, so they're something like that. I like the little hard-shelled natives for their flavor, but these bigger paper shells and some of the bigger other varieties that aren't necessarily paper shells, they sure make pecan faster. You crack them out faster. But these pecans aren't huge. See, they're the size of the end of my thumb. They're the size of the end of my thumb. They're not a huge pecan, but they're bigger than a lot of the natives. A lot of the native pecans. This come off a tree that's in Madison, in our town next to us, our big town. Well, not big town. In the bigger of the two towns we're between. Alright, I'm not quite done with them, but see, there's the pecans I've cracked out already. You can see, you can kind of just shuffle around and a lot of these will shell out. When I was younger, we'd crack a bunch of these up and I'd sift through and find all the ones that shelled out, and then I'd go crack some more. Let somebody else pick them out, the ones that picked out a little harder. But I may show you in a little bit some that I've already picked out and how that's working. But these are pretty good, so we're gonna finish this and I'll show you guys some more stuff in a minute. Alright, we have these pecans we're ready, we've cracked out. I've cracked out this big container of pecans, and I've got this other container. Here is a little tub of native pecans that I've already cracked out. You can see they're fairly small, but these are the really good flavored ones. Guys, in case you didn't know this, shelling pecans or snapping green beans or anything like that always goes better if there's a beautiful lady around. And so you can almost see, yeah, there she is. Helps a lot. And I'm gonna put those in something else in a minute. Sometimes we like to keep the smaller pecans and the bigger pecans separate. These are the ones you put in stuff. These are the ones you put on stuff. And the bigger ones go better on things, and the little ones with a better flavor go better in things. Not that these are bad flavored. These taste wonderful. These just taste more wonderful. Cindy and I have always used quart Ziploc bags to keep our pecans in. They go good in the freezer. They stack well in the freezer. Quart's a good measurement to get out, good amount. It doesn't take too terribly long to fill them up. When I was a kid, a lot of times we filled up a gallon bag, but then Mom would just scoop out as much as she needed. And so those are our smaller ones, and I'll fill them up with some other ones later when I crack more of them out. And I like to kind of know measurements as I'm doing things like this. So this little deal's about half a quart. Two of them will fill up a quart bag just about. But I do them about the same as I crack. I get my cracked ones, my place to put my hulls, and then my place I'm putting my pecans when they're picked out. And I just sit here and pull it off of them. Couple of tools a tool you're going to need when you do this, especially if you're doing walnuts instead of pecans, which walnuts take a different cracker, but other than that it's pretty similar. But definitely helpful is these little picks. And little picks, I have used a 16 penny nail that I took a file to the end of before, but this works. These picks work pretty good, and you can kind of take the bitters right here in the groove of the top of the pecan. Sometimes a little bitter stays in there and you can knock it out with that pick. Sometimes this side there's a little bitter stays in there and you can knock that out with the pick. Usually have the cracker. This one's been well used. Usually have a little hand cracker around in case one of them didn't get cracked good enough. But I don't usually need that, but sometimes it helps. Especially as my hands aren't as strong as they used to be. But so I just pick these out. I put my cracked pecans in there and my hulls and stuff in here. And I remember picking out with one of my grandparents when I was a kid, and they would have a bowl for the good halves and a bowl for the pieces. And you only put good halves in one bowl and pieces in the other. And basically they used the pieces in stuff and the good halves on stuff. And so they kept them in separate bags. But we just put them all together, and then you kind of dig through. A lot of times Cindy will pull out enough of the bigger ones to put on stuff, and then use the other ones and chop them up for stuff. So guys, that's kind of how we do our pecans. And pecans have been a kind of a family thing for me. My grandpa always had pecan trees, and I grew up kind of in pecan country in Oklahoma. And my family would sometimes go pick up on the shares other places, and my dad would find trees where people let us pick up. And even now, where he lives in Missouri, him and I went and found some trees to pick up under. But we kind of, pecans have always been a thing, and we really like pecan pie. That's always a big thing at family stuff. So that's how we do it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope maybe you learned something. Maybe you thought, man, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, but it's worked for me. So there you go. That's how I crack and shell pecans. And remember that God made you special, and He loves you very much. We'll see you later.